Emma thought her best friend had saved her marriage. But the truth? That friend was the reason it was falling apart. When she finally said it, right there on live television, Dr. Phil stopped the show. The audience didn't clap. They didn't even breathe. Because in that moment, every person watching realized this wasn't just a story about betrayal. It was about what happens when the truth walks into the light and no one is ready for it. It started like any other taping day. Bright lights, studio air just cold enough to make your skin tighten, and that low hum of audience chatter waiting for the next emotional storm. Emma sat center stage, shoulders drawn in, hands twisted in her lap. Across from her, Ryan, her husband of 11 years, tried to keep his face steady. Dr. Phil's voice cut through the tension. Calm, grounded. Emma, he said, what do you feel when you look at him? Her lips parted. She hesitated. You could almost hear the war inside her, the part that still wanted to protect the illusion and the part that couldn't live with it another second. She wasn't supposed to say it, one producer later whispered. Not on live television. But truth has a way of slipping through when you're done pretending. Emma's voice cracked. He was sleeping with her, she said. At first, no one reacted, not even Dr. Phil. The words floated in the air, too heavy to land. Then a wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. Camera operators froze. The husband's face went pale. With who? Dr. Phil asked gently. Emma turned her head toward the audience, and there, in the third row, sat Claire, her best friend since college. The woman who'd held her hand through every argument, who helped plan her wedding, who'd been there for every girls' night and tearful phone call. Emma pointed straight at her. With her. Gasps. Actual, audible gasps. Dr. Phil blinked, processing. Are you saying your best friend? Yes, Emma cut in. She's the other woman. Silence. Thick, unfiltered, unbearable silence. Ryan tried to speak, but his words collapsed into stammers. Claire covered her mouth, tears spilling, shaking her head, but not denying it. That's when Dr. Phil did something he rarely does. He held up his hand to the control booth and said quietly, "Stop the tape." The red recording light flicked off. Audience members leaned forward, unsure if the show was still real or if they were now witnessing something far more personal. Security moved toward the stage as Ryan stood, confused and cornered. Emma's breathing quickened. You knew, she whispered to him, voice trembling. You knew she was my best friend, and you still did it. Ryan didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence said everything. The cameras were no longer rolling, but the truth was. Every look, every breath, every shiver in that room told the same story. The one that can't be edited, polished, or rewritten. Betrayal always finds its way to the surface. As they escorted Ryan backstage, Emma's final words hung in the air. You knew, didn't you? And for the first time, even Dr. Phil had nothing to say. When someone we love betrays us, do we really crave the truth or just the comfort of denial? 3 weeks before that moment, before the lights, before the shock, Emma's life looked picture perfect. She and Ryan were sitting side by side in the studio's pre-show interview room. The cameras weren't rolling yet, but you could feel their practice harmony. Matching smiles, matching body language, the kind of couple that made you believe some people really have it all together. The producer leaned forward. Just be honest, she said gently. Tell Dr. Phil what's been going on. Emma glanced at Ryan. His hand rested over hers. It looked tender from the outside, but her fingers didn't move. Because inside that quiet space between them, something was already dead. Their story, at least the one they rehearsed, went like this. After 11 years of marriage, the spark had faded. They were here to reconnect, to talk about communication issues, not confessions. It sounded harmless, safe, something millions could relate to. But in every story Emma told, one name kept appearing, Claire. Her best friend, her sister in everything but blood. The one who helped plan her wedding, who took photos at every anniversary dinner, who watched Emma's kids when she worked late. And every time Emma said that name, the producer's eyebrow twitched just slightly. Because even through the camera lens, you could see it. Claire wasn't just a supporting character in this story. She was threaded through every part of it. Claire's been my rock, Emma said on camera. Honestly, I don't know what I'd do without her. Ryan's smile tightened. His fingers drummed once, then stopped, just enough to make Emma notice. It's funny, people think betrayal begins with a single moment. A kiss, a message, a lie. But the truth? It often begins in plain sight, disguised as closeness, kindness, friendship. Every photo on Emma's phone, every barbecue, birthday, family vacation, had Claire in it. In one, Claire's sitting next to Ryan on a picnic blanket. In another, she's standing behind Emma, her hand on Ryan's shoulder. It looked innocent. It always does. Emma used to laugh when people joked that Claire was part of the family. She didn't know how true that would become. The cracks started small. Missed calls, last-minute changes, Ryan's work trips that didn't line up with his calendar. Emma brushed it off. Life was busy, right? But sometimes, at night, she'd see Ryan's phone light up on the dresser. And there it was, Claire's name. Probably something about the kids, she told herself. Probably nothing. But denial. Denial is just hope wearing a disguise. One evening, Emma was sorting through photos for a scrapbook segment Dr. Phil's team had requested. Happy couple shots, moments of love. She clicked through her folders. And then she froze. There it was. A picture she didn't remember taking. Claire, sitting on Emma's porch swing, wearing Ryan's gray sweatshirt. The one with the faded university logo that Emma had given him on their first anniversary. Her heart skipped, but her mind made excuses faster than her pulse could rise. Maybe he lent it to her. Maybe it was cold that night. Maybe nothing. She tried to delete the thought, but you can't unsee the truth once it's been photographed. Later that night, she asked Ryan about the sweatshirt. Casual tone, gentle question, but he blinked too long before answering. Oh yeah, I think she borrowed it last month. A pause. Too short to call suspicious, too long to feel normal. That's when Emma noticed it, the way he said her name. Softly, carefully, like he'd said it before 100 times, but never in front of his wife. And something inside Emma began to unravel. That night, as she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she whispered to herself, "What if I'm not crazy? What if it's real?" But she turned away before finishing the thought, because the truth, if spoken aloud, might actually start to exist. In the morning, she put on her smile again, posted another photo of their date night. Perfect couple, perfect caption, perfect lie. The world saw happiness. But behind that filter was a woman who couldn't shake the image of her best friend. In her husband's sweatshirt, in her home, in her story. How much truth can love survive before it stops being love at all? 2 days before the taping, Emma woke to the sharp ping of her phone. 5:42 a.m. The sky outside her bedroom window was still gray. Ryan was already gone. Early meeting, he'd said. She blinked at the screen. New email. No subject line. No name. Just 4 words in the preview. Before you embarrass yourself. Her stomach tightened. She opened it. Asked him about the cabin in Lakeview. That was it. No signature. No punctuation. Just the kind of message that hits like a ghost in the dark. At first, she laughed. A shaky, defensive laugh that sounded nothing like humor. People are crazy, she muttered, setting the phone down. But the thought stuck. The words looped over and over until they became part of her breathing. Ask him about the cabin. Lakeview, a place they'd only visited once. Or so she thought. A tiny lakeside town 2 hours away, where Ryan claimed he'd gone on team retreats. She remembered the photo he'd sent once. A sunset over the water, a wine glass on the railing, and his reflection faintly visible in the window. At the time, she thought it was beautiful. Now it looked staged. By noon, curiosity had turned to nausea. She opened her laptop, scrolled through old bank statements, travel receipts, anything with that word. Lakeview. There it was. A charge from 6 months ago. Cabin stay getaway, 2 guests. 2. Her throat tightened. She tried to breathe, but it felt like inhaling sand. That night, Ryan came home humming, holding takeout, and acting as if nothing was wrong. She wanted to scream, to ask, to confront him, but she didn't. She needed proof. Because when love breaks, people call you crazy before they call you right. So she smiled, ate dinner, listened to him talk about work, and silently counted every lie disguised as a sentence. Later, in the shower, she whispered the words again. asked him about the cabin. By morning, she couldn't hold it in. "Hey," she said casually over coffee. "Whatever happened to that cabin retreat you went on last fall?" Ryan blinked, then forced a smile. "Oh, that? The company doesn't even do those anymore." But his hand, it tightened around his mug. White-knuckled. "Oh," she said, "I just found a charge. For 2 people." Silence. Then the kind of laugh that hides panic. "Probably a booking error. You know how these sites are." "Sure. Maybe." But denial was losing its power. That afternoon, Emma called Claire. Her voice was light, rehearsed. "Hey, remember when Ryan went to that cabin for work? You ever been to Lakeview?" There was a pause. Not long, just 1 second too long. "No," Claire said. "Why?" Emma's pulse spiked. She didn't answer. Just thanked her friend, hung up, and sat in silence. The house felt colder. Hours later, she called again. No answer. Texted. Nothing. By evening, Claire's read receipts disappeared. That's when the line between coincidence and confession began to blur. The next day, Emma walked into the guest room, the one where Claire used to sleep when she stayed over, and opened the dresser. Inside the top drawer, she found something she hadn't noticed before, a gold bracelet. Engraved initials. Tej-er. It hit her like a physical blow, the kind that knocks your breath out before your tears even arrive. That night, Emma didn't sleep. She just sat in the dim light of her phone screen, rereading that email, the bracelet beside her like evidence in a trial she never agreed to attend. By dawn, she'd made a decision. She wouldn't confront them yet. She'd let the truth reveal itself, on camera, in front of the world. Because secrets survive best in silence, and she was done being quiet. 2 days later, backstage at the Dr. Phil taping, she saw Ryan's phone light up. A message flashed across the screen. "We shouldn't do this on camera." The name attached to it stopped her heart cold. Claire. Some lies don't die quietly. They send warnings. She turned toward the studio doors, feeling the weight of the lights waiting for her. If the truth hurts this much, what does that say about the life built on top of it? The studio smelled like powder makeup and stage coffee. Producers rushed between clipboards and headsets, whispering cues. From the outside, it was just another Dr. Phil recording day. But backstage, something felt off. Ryan sat in the dressing room chair, tapping his foot. The sound was sharp, nervous. He'd already adjusted his tie 3 times. Emma sat across from him, eyes fixed on the floor. Between them, silence, that thick, choking kind that swallows every word before it can leave your mouth. Claire was there too, invited by producers as Emma's emotional support. She stood by the wall, scrolling her phone like it was armor. When their eyes met in the mirror, Emma's stomach flipped. It was the same mirror that had caught her reflection for years, brushing Claire's hair before girls' nights, laughing, sharing secrets. Now it only showed strangers. A stage manager poked his head in. 2 minutes. Dr. Phil's voice came faintly from the hallway, deep and calm. "We're going to keep this respectful. We deal in truth, not spectacle." Emma swallowed hard. Truth. The word tasted different now. The theme music faded. Cameras rolled. Applause. They walked onto the stage, 3 people pretending to be whole. At first, it sounded like every other reconciliation episode. Dr. Phil asked about communication, trust, rebuilding. Ryan spoke first, smooth and practiced. "We've had our ups and downs," he said. "But I love my wife. I just want us to be okay again." Emma nodded politely, her eyes dull. The audience smiled supportively, unaware that the script was seconds from burning. Dr. Phil turned to Emma. "You've been quiet. What's going through your mind right now?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her chest rose and fell. Something inside her broke through the fear. "I can't do this," she whispered. "What can't you do?" Dr. Phil asked. "Pretend." The word echoed across the set. Producers froze behind the cameras. "Pretend what, Emma?" Her gaze shifted to the audience, to the front row, where Claire sat, gripping the arms of her chair. "Pretend she's my friend." A ripple went through the crowd. Murmurs. Gasps. Dr. Phil leaned forward. "Are you saying—" "Yes." Emma cut in, her voice trembling. "She's the other woman." It was like pulling a fire alarm in the middle of a church service. The studio erupted, shock, whispers a few audible no ways. Claire's face drained of color. Ryan stood up, hands shaking. "That's not true," he blurted. But his voice cracked. Emma turned toward him, tears streaking her cheeks. "Then say it. Look me in the eye and tell me it's not." He opened his mouth, and nothing came out. Every camera in the room caught that silence, the second before denial collapses. Dr. Phil glanced toward the control booth. His expression changed. Serious. Protective. "Cut the tape," he said quietly. For the first time in years, the red record light went dark mid-segment. The audience hushed. Security moved closer to the stage, just in case. But Emma wasn't shouting. She wasn't angry anymore. She was just done. "You both lied to me," she said softly. "You sat in my house, at my table. You let my kids call you Aunt Claire. Do you know what that does to a person?" Claire stood, tears streaming. "Emma, please." "Don't." Emma snapped. "You had every chance to tell me. You looked me in the eye and said I was overreacting." Ryan tried to reach for her hand, but she pulled away like his touch was fire. Dr. Phil stepped forward, voice steady. "Let's take a break. Emma, come with me." As he guided her off stage, the camera stayed off, but every heart in that room stayed locked on her. Backstage, the world sounded muffled, just echoes of chaos. Ryan paced, muttering, "It wasn't supposed to go like this." Claire sat on the floor, shaking, mascara streaked down her face. Emma leaned against the wall, staring at the ground. "It was never supposed to go at all," she said quietly. The crew didn't know whether to console her or give her space. Dr. Phil placed a hand on her shoulder. "The truth's heavy," he said, "but it's lighter than the lie you've been carrying." For the first time, Emma exhaled, a sound halfway between sob and relief. Outside the studio doors, the audience waited, stunned. No one left their seat. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. Because once truth breaks, there's no putting it back together. Is truth still sacred when it destroys everything in its path? When the red light went off, it felt like the air left the room. The audience's whispers faded into a stunned, uncomfortable silence. Producers moved quickly, gently ushering people out while pretending everything was under control. But everyone could feel it. The story wasn't over. Dr. Phil didn't go back to his desk. He walked straight to Emma. No cameras, no audience. Just the echo of what had been said. "You did something hard," he told her quietly. "You told the truth." Emma's hands were still shaking. Her mascara had run into small rivers beneath her eyes. She wasn't thinking about the cameras or the internet or the episode anymore. Just one question repeating in her head. How long had they been lying? In the green room, Ryan sat on the couch, elbows on his knees, face buried in his hands. He looked like a man caught between guilt and exhaustion. Because in truth, he was both. When Dr. Phil stepped in, the tension shifted. "Ryan," he said calmly, "Emma deserves clarity, not excuses. You owe her that." Ryan's voice cracked. "It wasn't supposed to happen. I swear to God, it just happened." "That's not how betrayal works," Dr. Phil said softly. "It doesn't just happen. You build it choice by choice, lie by lie." Emma looked at him. Not angry, not screaming, just empty. "Was it one time?" she asked. Ryan hesitated. "No." Her breath caught. "How long?" He looked at the floor. "Almost a year." The words hit like a car crash in slow motion. Behind a glass window, a producer turned away. Even the crew didn't want to hear the rest. Claire had already been escorted out earlier, her sobs echoing down the hallway. But her absence didn't make the truth any softer. Emma stared at her husband. Every dinner, every photo, every time she hugged me, you both knew. Ryan tried to reach for her hand, but she recoiled. "Don't," she said, voice trembling. "Don't touch me." Dr. Phil gave him space, but stayed close enough to ground the chaos. "Emma," he said gently, "you don't have to decide what forgiveness looks like today. Sometimes the first step isn't forgiving someone else. It's forgiving yourself for believing them." She wiped her tears, breathing unevenly. "I don't even know who I am without this lie." "That's where you start," he said. "Right there." The next hour never aired. No cameras, no applause. Just raw humanity, pain, truth, the sound of two lives splitting down the middle. When it was over, Emma asked to leave quietly. She didn't want to face the press, the whispers, or the internet theories. She just wanted air. As she walked down the hallway, the stage lights behind her dimmed, leaving long, soft shadows stretching across the floor. A production assistant ran after her with something small, a sealed envelope. "This was dropped off for you earlier," she said. No return address. No name. Just her name, written in handwriting she recognized instantly. Claire's. Inside, she found a folded note, short, shaky ink. "You weren't supposed to find out this way. I never wanted to hurt you. I'm sorry for everything." Emma folded it back up, not ready to read it again. She pressed the envelope to her chest, not out of nostalgia, but out of exhaustion, because sometimes closure doesn't feel like peace. It just feels like the end of a storm you barely survived. In the parking lot, she stopped and looked back at the studio, a place built for truth, and today it delivered more than she ever wanted. Dr. Phil's words replayed in her mind. Healing begins where denial ends. And for the first time, Emma realized she wasn't just a guest on a show. She was a woman reclaiming her story. Sometimes the real show happens after the cameras go dark. Can forgiveness exist without reconciliation? Or are they two sides of the same wound? 6 months later, the world had already moved on. But for Emma, time hadn't really started again yet, not fully. The internet had chewed her story up and spit it back out. Memes, headlines, speculation. Some called her brave. Others called her naive. But she'd stopped reading the comments weeks ago. Because healing doesn't happen online. It happens in silence, in the small, quiet corners of real life. Now, every Tuesday morning, she drove to a local women's shelter. No cameras, no stage lights, just stories, hundreds of them. Women who'd been lied to, broken, and still somehow got up the next day anyway. She didn't come to give advice. She came to listen, to sit in that circle of folding chairs and know that her pain wasn't unique, and that maybe that was the point. The first time she introduced herself, she kept it simple. I'm Emma. I thought I knew what my life was until I didn't. They didn't need the rest. The room nodded because they understood. Every week, she brought cookies, coffee, and something new, a journal, a quote, sometimes just her presence. It wasn't about the past anymore. It was about the part that comes after. Back home, her kids were adjusting too. Ryan wasn't around anymore. He'd moved out quietly, without drama, just distance. Co-parenting was messy, but civil. Some days, she almost forgot to hate him. And on those days, she realized she was healing. One night, after putting the kids to bed, she sat by the window and reread Claire's letter. Not to reopen the wound, but to finally close it. The words still hurt. They always would. But now, it didn't control her. She whispered into the quiet, "I forgive you." Not because they deserved it, but because she deserved peace. In the months that followed, something shifted. Emma started sharing her story, not as gossip, but as guidance. A podcast invited her, then a local magazine, then a women's conference. Each time, her message was the same. Truth doesn't fix what's broken. It gives you permission to stop pretending. Her voice trembled the first few times she said it, but soon it became her strength. The truth had once destroyed her marriage, her trust, her sense of identity. But it had also rebuilt something stronger: honesty, integrity, freedom. And people listened. Because everyone, somewhere inside, has a secret they're afraid to face. On one of those quiet afternoons in the studio's green room, the same place where her old life had shattered, Dr. Phil recorded a short follow-up. His tone was reflective, almost fatherly. "Sometimes," he said, looking directly into the camera, "truth doesn't come when you're ready. It comes when you need it. And if you're brave enough to face it, even when it burns, that's where real healing begins." He paused, then added softly, "Emma didn't lose a marriage. She found herself." The clip went viral again, but this time, it wasn't for the drama. It was for the message. In the end, there was no grand reunion. No fairytale ending. Just a woman, standing in her truth, no longer ashamed of it. She stopped living in the story that hurt her and started writing the one that healed her. And maybe that's the real legacy of the truth. Dr. Phil's final words from that segment still echo whenever people replay the clip online. His voice low, calm, resolute. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is tell the truth, even if no one claps for it. Because truth doesn't always give you applause, but it will give you peace. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe a friend still hiding behind a lie, or someone who's afraid of losing everything by telling the truth. Because sometimes speaking up doesn't end your story, it finally begins it.